Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this regularly scheduled City Commission meeting of July the 6th. I have no changes or amendments to the agenda, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as it was published to the public. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Coleman, are you going to finish that? I second from Commissioner Coleman there. Any questions or comments from the dais? Any questions or comments from the public on the motion on the floor, which is just to approve the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. We'd like to welcome Deacon Tim Marden from Destiny Community Church to the podium. If you would, please, ladies and gentlemen, rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm not a deacon. Jordan just likes to tease me about that. Let's bow our heads. Thank you, Lord. We appreciate this day, this beautiful community that we are able to live in. We ask for your hand in the meeting today and in our community. We hope that you have your hand on those who are afflicted with disease, with trauma, with stress, with anything. We ask that those people bring you to their lives and hopefully make them better. Lord, we will walk here tonight. We will walk in the steps that you've ordained for us, and please have your hand and make us worthy for the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ. In his name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Marden. We have no presentations tonight, so that's going to move us to public announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're here to talk to make an announcement about a garage sale or something that's non-controversial, now's the time to do it. We set aside 2 minutes. If you'd like to talk to something that's on the agenda, we ask you to wait for the agenda item. If you have a more controversial topic that you'd like to bring to the Commission's attention, we do have a segment at the end of the night for 5-minute public comments as well. So do we have any announcements anyone wants to make? I have none, but while I have some people here, I'd like to announce a parade that is going to 95% for sure happening on September 25th to welcome back the veterans returning from Afghanistan. So it's being put on by our American Legion here in Newberry. So September 25th, it's a Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning. They've just about got all of their T's crossed and I's dotted and those kinds of things. So we'll start making public announcements about that just as soon as it's for sure going to happen. Okay, no other public comment. That's going to move us to consent agenda, which we also do not have one, which will take us to public hearings and ordinances. Let's talk about the resolution 2021-27, which is determining and setting the proposed millage rate. Scott, you want to go ahead and read that resolution into the record for us, please, while Dallas is making his way?
Mr. Mayor, I don't see it on my electronic, and I'm looking for it. I'm not seeing it in my paper.
Here we have
Okay.
Dallas to the rescue.
Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, this is Resolution 2021-27, a resolution determining the proposed millage rate, the current year rollback rate, and the date, time, and place for the first and second public budget hearings as required by law, authorizing the city manager to change budget hearing dates if necessary, directing the Director of Finance and Administration to file said resolution with the property appraiser pursuant to the requirements of Florida statutes and the rules and regulations of the Department of Revenue of the state of Florida, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2021-27 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Before I ask for a motion, we'll hear from Dallas. You have a presentation for us?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, I don't have a presentation. As the commission remembers, this is the resolution that sets your maximum millage rate that you can adopt for this fiscal year. Staff proposes adopting a maximum millage rate of 6.2807 mils, which is your simple majority cap. It means a simple majority, 3 of the 5 commissioners can adopt this. This is slightly above the current millage rate of 5.99999 mils. Staff's budget is based off that 5.99999 continuation, but we do ask for a slight increase to give the commission wiggle room throughout the budget process.
And again, the commission has the power before the end of the cycle to reduce it back down, correct?
Correct, Mr. Mayor. You can reduce it below the proposed millage rate, but you cannot increase it.
Okay. Questions for Dallas? There are no questions. I hear a motion. Okay, I have a motion to approve Resolution 2021-27. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. And that will take us to item 2, which is a quasi-judicial. Ladies and gentlemen, when we enter into quasi-judicial, we stop being a legislative body and we start being a judicial body, which means that we have to adhere to a different set of rules and procedures. We call these quasi-judicial procedures. In a minute, I'm going to ask the attorney to read the ordinance into the record for us. But before I do so, I want to explain the rules that govern quasi-judicials. The primary rules that we can only consider substantial and competent evidence, and that bar must be met when the board makes a decision, and it shall state the following, and I quote, "All public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record." Before I ask the attorney to read the ordinance in, I'm going to go ahead and explain that I'm going to ask this board if they've had any ex parte, which means that they've had any conversations with anybody that's partaking of this that has not been here in public in the sunshine. And then I'm going to ask the clerk to swear everyone in. But before we get to that, if we're ready, or do you want me to do ex parte? You got it?
We'll read it.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance 2021-26, CPA 21-08, and application by Herb and Jeannie Marlowe as owners to amend the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan by changing the future land use classification from low-density residential, 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre, to medium-density residential, less than or equal to 8 dwelling units per acre on 2.08 acres located at 24916 Southwest 4th Avenue, 24928 Southwest 4th Avenue, and 24902 Southwest 4th Avenue, identified by Alachua County parcel number 01943-000-000. Appropriate motion at the appropriate time is to pass ordinance 2021-26 as read by title only.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. So we'll go ahead and do ex parte, and then we'll do, Commissioner Coleman, you got anything to report? Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Marden?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mazon?
No.
Okay, and again, I'm a non-voting mayor, which means I'm not partaking in the decision-making process. And Madam Clerk, would you please swear anyone in? If you're here to speak to this item tonight, would you please stand? Actually, if you're here to speak to this item, our item number 3, please stand, because both of those are linked. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I'm going to go ahead and go through the presentation order that we will adhere to tonight for all 3 of our quasi-judicials. I won't go through this again because the second quasi-judicial is linked to this one unless someone new enters the chamber. So we're first going to hear from staff overview, and then we're going to hear from the applicant. If the applicant's not present, staff is going to go into their presentation report along with their recommendation. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. So that's going to move us to public comment. Anybody here from the public who wishes to speak to these to this agenda item, we're given 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine. The staff will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Then members of the decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of staff or the applicant. Then we'll hear final arguments from everyone involved. The city attorney will advise the decision-making body. The board will enter into deliberations, and after deliberations, we'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, approve with conditions, or continue the application. With that, Ms. Wendy, would you please give us the staff overview? And since I don't see the applicant present, you can move right into your recommendation and report.
Thank you.
Our report and recommendation.
This application is one that's been submitted and heard by you all at your last meeting on the 12th of this month. This is a request by Herb and Jeannie Marlowe, who are the owners of the property, for 2.08 acres to change the future land use classification from low-density residential to medium-density residential, which is up to 8 units per acre versus the 1 to 4 units per acre. It does meet the comprehensive plan requirement for being served by centralized water and sewer. and it would provide a step down of intensity of land uses from commercial to the west and then residential to the east. And it does provide some additional housing opportunities for properties that are located near schools and commercial. So this is the first step of the process when you want to change the use on property for ensuring that you're compliant with the comprehensive plan and with your zoning. And this application is to change the future land use map. This affects properties that are under 50 acres. The land use requirement was changed by the Florida legislature recently to require that 50 acres rather than 10 acres be that threshold. But this is 2.08 acres, and so that's fine. The future land use, as you see on the map, the yellow color, yellowish green is the low-density residential, and the red commercial, and the greenish color is the public land use for the Oakview Middle School. And the Planning and Zoning Board did recommend approval of this application 3-1, and the City Commission did approve this at your last meeting on first reading. The recommendation is to approve ordinance 2021-26 for CPA 2108 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Since the applicant is not here and I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, that's going to take us to public comment. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak to this item tonight? Seeing none, it's going to take us, I'm going to go ahead and skip through cross-examinations and go down to members of the decision-making body. Do you have any questions for staff? Second reading. No? All right. So Wendy, do you feel the need to make a final argument? Thank you. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making body?
Competent and substantial evidence, as all of these quasi-judicial matters will be this evening. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Did we leave that mic on, Ms. Wendy? Can you? Okay, are there any deliberations? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, continue.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth to approve the application. Are there any questions or comments from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any questions or comments from the public on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're still in quasi-judicial, so I'm going to ask Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading ordinance 2021-16/LDR 21-13 into the record, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application by Herb and Jeannie Marlowe, owners, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from RSF1 residential single-family zoning district to RMF1 residential multifamily zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 02263-003-000, consisting of approximately 2.08 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-16 as read by title only.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Sir.
I don't see anybody new in, so I don't think we need to swear anybody in. And does anyone have any ex parte on this item? So you had none on the last one? Should, okay. So that's going to take us to the staff overview, and since the applicant's not present, slide right into that presentation and recommendation.
Okay, will do. This application, again, is another change that's going from to change the zoning to implement the comprehensive plan amendment that you just approved. So this zoning is the second public hearing at which this would become effective once the plan amendment became effective 31 days from today. The request is again by the same applicants, Herb and Jeannie Marlowe, rezoning from RSF1 to RSF3, RMF, excuse me, that's incorrect. But it is a rezoning to RSF3 to allow for up to 8 units per acre. It's on 2.08 acres. It is served by city electric, water, and wastewater, and it does meet that requirement as well as that of the comprehensive plan to be served by those services. The rezoning, you can see on the map, this is the zoning map showing the RSF1 in the yellowish color, and the dark brown kind of color is the commercial. And to the south is Oakview Middle School, even though it is land used as residential. The step down of intensity is provided from the commercial to the residential single family to the east. Minimum lot requirements for the property would be determined based on the development of that particular property. So whether it gets 8 units per acre for that kind of thing, depending on the development, maximum is 8. Minimum lot requirements and setbacks, we talked about those at our last meeting. So if you have any questions about those, we can look at that. The prior actions, the Planning and Zoning Board did recommend approval, and the City Commission approved the ordinance on first reading at their July 12th meeting. And the recommendation is to approve ordinance 2021-16 for LDR 2113 on second reading.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. Again, I have not been contacted, but anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, that's going to move us to public comment. Anybody here from the public wish to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, that's going to take us down, assuming no cross-examinations. Member decision-making body, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we don't have final arguments. We've already been advised by the attorney. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion to approve, deny, continue. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Marden. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, do we have any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we're still in quasi-judicial. Mr. Attorney, would you please read into the record on second reading ordinance 2021-27 and let's do 21-27 first.
Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance 2021-27, a petition by Cynthia Cullen Hatton, also known as Cynthia Cullen Saylor, owner of parcels 01834-003-000 and 01834-006-000, providing for the voluntary annexation of parcels of land contiguous to the boundaries of the city of Newberry, Florida, as shown on the location map. The area to be annexed is located in Section 19, Township 09, Marine 17, Alachua County, Florida. The area to be annexed consists of 40.3 acres, more or less. Appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2021-27 is read by title only.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Now, this is a different set of quasi-judicial, so if you are here to speak to 2021-27 or 2021-28, I'm going to ask the clerk to swear you in one moment. But before I do, I'm going to ask for ex parte on either of these. Commissioner Coleman, do you have anything for either one? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Marden?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mazon?
No, sir.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone here who needs to be sworn in? If you would please rise, sir, just in case you plan on speaking. Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we've sworn in, we've done ex parte. We're going to follow the same staff, same presentation order. Ms. Wendy, go ahead and give us the staff overview, and then we'll see if the applicant wants to make a presentation.
Right. So this is for two different requests to voluntarily annex into the city. You did hear this at your last meeting on July 12th. This is their second reading, and there's two different locations that you see on the map. The first one, which is represented by the ordinance that was just read by title, for 2021-27 is for two parcels, about 40.3 acres, and it's by Cynthia Cullen Hatton, who's the owner, to voluntarily annex for that acreage. And it is located about a quarter of a mile south of Northwest 46th Avenue, slightly less than a mile east of Northwest 298th Street, otherwise known as County Line Road. And the next one is for an application for 7.66 acres. That's located on Newberry Road, and that's for ordinance 2021-28. And that's near the Dudley Farm Historic Park. And then you can see where the location, it is about 0.3 miles from Northwest 202nd on the north side of Newberry Road. The ordinances, they're two separate applications, two different locations, three parcels for a total of 47.96 acres that's being requested to be annexed in. The annexation does serve to strengthen contiguity and improve the overall compactness of the municipal boundary by annexing these properties. And the notice was provided to the county and to the growth management department for the county, and we have not received any response to date. The City Commission recommended or approved on first reading, of the ordinance by title only and establish today's date as the date for enactment hearing. So the recommendation is for enacting each of those ordinances, 2021-27 and 2021-28 on second reading.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Would the applicant like to make a presentation? All right. So we have staff report and recommendation still up on the, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to take us to public comment. Any members of the public here wishing to speak to this item on the agenda? Seeing none. Did you feel the need to cross-examine anything you heard from staff, sir? Okay, then we're going to move to members' decision-making body. Do you have any questions for staff on second reading? Okay, seeing none. And no final argument, sir? No final argument, Wendy? Great. Mr. Attorney, you've already advised us for all of them tonight, so we'll enter into deliberations. Did you want to do it again?
Nope.
Okay. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman to approve, a second from Commissioner Marden. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor?
Where to find out?
Public have any questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. We're still in quasi-judicial. Mr. Attorney, please read 2021-28 into the record for us.
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, annexing certain portions of unincorporated Alachua County that includes tax parcel number 04265-007-000 as more specifically described in this ordinance, as petitioned for by the property owner pursuant to Section 171.044 of the Florida statutes, making certain findings, providing for land use, zoning, and land development regulations and the enforcement of same, providing directions to the clerk of the commission, providing severability clause, and providing an immediate effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-28 upon its second and final reading.
Okay, Ms. Wendy, I heard your presentation and recommendation for both of those, correct? So that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wants to speak to 2021-28? Seeing none, that's going to take us all the way down to member decision-making body. Got any questions for staff? Seeing none, no final arguments. We've already had our advice. Deliberations are motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth.
It's your turn.
I have a second from Commissioner Mazon. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're still in quasi-judicial. One last one. Mr. Attorney, would you please read ordinance 2021-33 into the record for us?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida for the voluntary contraction of the city boundary by de-annexing 77.50 acres, more or less, of real property identified as Alachua County tax parcel number 04152-001-000 and generally located at the intersection of Northwest 46th Avenue and Northwest 186th Street, more particularly and legally described herein, providing for the amendment of the city boundaries to contract the subject property from the city boundaries, providing for implementation, apportionment, and notice to appropriate agencies, providing for repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, providing severability and establishing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-33 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Now, if we have anyone here who is going to speak to ordinance 2021-33, I'm going to ask the clerk to swear you in a moment. Before I do that, I'm going to ask the commission for ex parte on this ordinance. Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Farnsworth. Commissioner Marden. Commissioner Mazon. Thank you, gentlemen. If anyone is here to speak to this, please rise and we'll swear in. It looks like Brian. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to follow the same presentation order. So, Brian, go ahead and give us an overview. If the applicant's not present, slide right into your report and recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is not present to my knowledge. As the attorney stated, this is ordinance 2021-33. This ordinance is designed to resolve the conflict resolution process between Alachua County and the City of Newberry pertaining to this particular annexation. The owner has severed off the 76-acre parcel, creating the number 04152-001-000. It will resolve that and leave a compact and contiguous remainder for the municipal boundary. And so with that, staff recommends the City Commission enact ordinance 2021-33 on second reading.
Thank you, sir. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener. So that's going to take us to public comment. Anybody here from the public wish to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, do we have any questions for staff? Okay, we've been advised by our attorney. Do you feel the need to make a final argument?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve, continue, deny. I have a motion from Commissioner Marden, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously, and we are now out of quasi-judicial. That's going to take us to our first agenda item, item 6. Tonight's published agenda is fireworks. Mike, are you going to take us through this, or did you bring our chief here to talk about fireworks?
Mr. Mayor, we had a team effort, but the city attorney is going to lead us through the presentation.
Scott.
Do the
All
start
right.
of it. I think we're going to tag team. Ben and I
All
will
right.
do a little tag teaming on this.
All right.
As you know, there is inconsistencies in our, there are inconsistencies with regard to our ordinances. The Section 7 of Chapter 38 provides complete prohibition against manufacturing, selling, using, possessing, displaying, or discharging fireworks within the city limits. Section 97 of Chapter 98 sets a fee, in contrast to that, for the public display of fireworks, which indicates that you are allowed to have fireworks, and the fee is $50 for such events, and the sale of fireworks at $50 per site. And then with the approval of the city manager under Section 34 of Chapter 62, the Parks and Recreation allows for the discharge of firecrackers, rockets, other fireworks or explosives within the park property. So Florida law governs the sale and use of fireworks in Chapter 791, and it provides a number of definitions, starting with fireworks does not include sparklers, cap guns, toy canes, toy guns, that sort of thing, and it defines how much of a load can be contained in those kind of fireworks. Does not include novelties and trick noisemakers such as a glowworm or a snake or that kind of thing. So you can have those, you can sell those, and your kids can set those off. What it prohibits is larger fireworks, the kind of things that when Monty Farnsworth was a young boy, or when Scott Walker was a young boy, those kind of things are prohibited. all the black cats that we broke apart and put together and then blew up, those kind of things are prohibited. Now there was an add-on in the Florida legislature that New Year's Day, January 1st, Independence Day, July 4th, New Year's Eve, December 31st, are not regulated for the use of fireworks. There is a provision that is in 791.02 that says that municipalities, City of Newberry, could adopt reasonable rules and regulations for the granting of permits for supervised public display. It sets up that your police chief, your fire chief can look over the applications. They have to be in 15 days in advance of whatever the event is. What we're seeing is applications come into the city of Newberry, and for example, we have a concert where they're going to shoot off some fireworks, and the question mark is, do you wish to regulate those kind of events? Do you wish to make it so that those events are not allowed in the city? You can be more restrictive than state law. You can't be less restrictive. So that's the statutory framework. Of course, you have your administrative code. Chief can speak to the admin code. It's 60 pages long and all kinds of detail of what your fire chief can do with respect to the governance of allowing fireworks. We did look at some of the areas around here that do regulate fireworks. The county does have a pretty good plan. They have a regime where they require comprehensive liability and property damage insurance with policy limits of not less than $5 million. including no less than $100,000 property damage coverage for each loss that may be occasioned in connection with the use of such special permits by the permit holder. The county manager and if we piggyback on this ordinance, our city manager may, in their discretion, require such additional insurance coverages as are deemed necessary. There's a cash bond of $5,000, and then the fire marshal, our fire chief, and the sheriff, in our instances, that's who provides our police protection, would have permitting provisions as to the use of the fireworks. And you have to have an application. There's an application process that is undertaken in order to gain the permitting by special permit, essentially, that would come before this board if you all chose to do that. But what we're looking for from staff is guidance as to how you would like to regulate this particular use in the city. So that's the question before you this evening.
Okay, so Scott, it's fair to say, well, not, we won't go across the board, but pretty much every fireworks show that's happened that hasn't had the city as a partner in it has been technically illegal, right?
I think it.
Because we've had this ordinance for quite some time that says just no,
Right.
right?
And then we have inconsistent provisions as to allowing it, so
Okay.
it
So that's
needs
what we're
to get
trying to do here
fixed.
tonight, is
Yes.
bring some consistency. In the county's plan, does that, because if it's done by special exception, which I think is how most of these have gone through, that goes to P and Z, it goes to you guys. If it's done through permitting, it's just done internally, you either meet the parameters, the fire chief says it's okay, or not. Is that accurate, Scott? At
That
the
is
county
how the
level?
county
Never
sets it
goes in
up.
front of the BOCC.
Correct.
It's
the
just
coun-
whether it,
The county manager is authorized to issue the special permit upon the following conditions. So if they meet the conditions of the permit, and they have to go through and show you exactly what fireworks are going to be shot off, where they're going to be held, what days, time, night, all that sort of thing has to be all specified in the permit.
and if you set up if I went to the county and I wanted to do a fireworks and the county manager shut me down, I would still have the right to go in front of the BOCC at that point.
I think
Right?
it
So if we
doesn't
set up a
spec-
similar, we don't completely cut the commission out of it, it's just, there's a line of hierarchy you have to go through.
I would say yes. Their specific ordinance does not provide for appeal, but we would explicitly state that.
Okay. I mean, I think that's generally would be it.
Correct.
Okay. Questions from the board? Fireworks. Commissioner
Chief, I'm
Farnsworth.
sorry if I stole your presentation.
He doesn't look upset at all.
Okay.
Yeah, would the ordinance require a certified pyrogenics or whatever they're called, pyrotech,
And I think at this point, the ordinance is whatever you tell Scott to write.
Right. Mr. Mayor, to answer the question, that the Florida Fire Marshal regulates fireworks in the state of Florida. All public displays of fireworks are governed by NFPA 1123 per the adoption within the Florida Administrative Code. So to answer the question, yes, that would be part of the ordinance, that you must be licensed by the state of Florida to hold these displays. For instance, 2 weeks ago, the commission approved an event that contains fireworks. We've already received the insurance certification from the company that's doing it. We've received all the information pertaining to the number of fireworks, the shot load on the fireworks. We've received everything, to my knowledge, that we're going to need that meets that Florida Administrative Code and NFPA 1123 requirement. So the answer is yes. That for public displays of fireworks, that would be something that would be in the ordinance, but it's also governed by Florida Administrative Code.
Other questions for Scott or Ben? Commissioner Marden.
I don't know necessarily where it falls within the process. My only concern would be in areas that have a lot of livestock present, and how we get around that issue, which will no doubt be an issue, which I'm ignorant about this, but It's to my understanding is livestock are sensitive to the noise, not the flash or the light or anything like that.
And the slide that's up here now, this was basically the commission considerations that we came up with that said, hey, here's the things that we'd like for the commission to think about. If we just leave the current ordinance in place and eliminate the fee that's associated with it. Can't do fireworks. Second one is modify the ordinance. We talked about NFPA 1123 for supervised public displays of fireworks. You modify the ordinance as the commission seems fit, and we go from there in whatever language you'd like in there. One of the other ones is, does the commission want to regulate in different zoning areas? And that's item number 3. So does the commission want to regulate where fireworks, public display of fireworks can actually happen within the municipal limits of the city? Industrial, commercial, agricultural, do we want to say it can happen anywhere? Do we want to say these are the only areas within the city that this can actually transpire? So those are things that we need direction on, because we're getting a lot more of these requests for these fireworks shows. And we've had to tell some folks in the past, hey, look, the ordinance says you can't do it, so we can't tell you you can do it. We're not going to take $50 and do an inspection. There's no permit application currently in place. So those are things that would have to be addressed if we decide to allow this going forward.
Commissioner Clark.
Which, Chief, in the wedding business, I've been down this route, so there's a couple things to caveat off of. One is the livestock. Number 2 is they've already done some parties in our area where these things got out of hand and made stampedes. You got the horses that go crazy and tear fences down. Here's what I'll tell you, though. We really need to sit and think about this, because there's a big difference in somebody that's a pro shooting one, or somebody goes to one of these 4th of July things and buys the boxes that we shoot off in our yard.
Right.
So I think that we should sit and talk about this and get some good feedback, not only from the community where you're talking about regulating, because the agriculture area is probably the area that don't want to see them as much as we do inside the city when it's 4th of July.
Right.
And everybody loves a display of fireworks. We just need to really, and I say that because your fireworks we buy is one thing, the one that are the pros shoots another thing.
Right.
So that'd be we need to take some time and do this right.
I agree, and that's, and the staff, we don't have a recommendation to the commission either way. We just need direction, and we need the ordinance cleaned up so we can direct the public that's coming and asking us about these things. We can direct them properly. Right now, I don't believe we can. So that's what's important to me, and my position is to make sure that we have something that says yes you can or no you can't. And as city attorney mentioned before, there's a somewhat of a conflict right now. We charge a fee. There's no permit application for that, but we're charging the fee that you can pay, but we turn around and say, no, you can't display fireworks or possess them or anything else. That's what we would like to be cleaned up by the commission. We're not making a recommendation as to what we think as staff.
Well, it seems to me that the first question is, do we want to let them happen? If the answer to that is no, then this is a much easier conversation. The pitfall to saying they're just prohibited across the board in our city is what we had the other night, where you've got a festival or a concert that comes in and somebody's standing there saying, hey, I can bring 10,000 people into your city, but I got to have, a fireworks show at the end of the concert. And will you guys give me a special exception to do it? And at that point, then we'd have to either stand by the decision, say, no, sorry, we've already said there's just no fireworks happening. I'm concerned about the livestock, but I'm also concerned about the neighborhoods. We've got a lot of vets that live in, that the noise with the PTSD bothers. We have a lot of children with disabilities, autism, that this really creates an issue. When we were doing our 125-year anniversary, we opted for laser shows because fireworks are so controversial, They just seem to disturb a lot of people. So I think the first question, if we just don't want to do it, that's great. If we do want to do, if we want to say, well, there's mechanisms, I'm not sure that just saying, well, you can't do it in rural areas is the answer, because the urban environments, they have their griefs as well. Commissioner Coleman?
Exactly. So, but I can tell you the area where we're at, you got Coleman cows, you got Langford cows, you got, I'm trying to remember who else is over there, Norfleets. And I can tell you the last time they had a big party out here at Davis's, I spent a whole Sunday helping to get those cows back. So, I mean, that was one heck of a firework display.
That's where it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, so, but I'm gonna tell you right now, either way we go with this, I'm voting that we don't have it out there. I mean, if it was in town, that's a little different, maybe
Well, now,
out there at Easton, but.
I don't want to get confused now, because the item that's in front of you guys tonight, you've already approved the show out there.
Yeah, I know it.
So that's not
Oh,
what we're
that's
talking
not
about.
up here?
That's what we're talking about today, is how do we want to handle moving forward,
Oh.
right? Because they already came and got their permit. We already did that one. And remember, we talked about how we did the P&Z in the meeting all on the same night. We didn't really give the public a pretty good chance to come up here, and
Right.
they didn't know about it, right? Because it all happened out on one night. So, but we're not talking about. Now, we can certainly, in a minute, we're going to hold to the order here today, right? Because I know we got some folks that want to talk. But we can certainly ask the city attorney in a moment and the manager, what are our abilities to contact them and say, we changed our mind. But they stood here in front of us, and we didn't tell them tonight, so they're not here to speak their piece. So tonight is, what do we want to do moving forward?
Right.
Not, we've already given them their permission. Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Mayor, right now at the time to make a 5-minute decision on this big of an issue. So whatever we come before the board, I say we need to sit and talk this out and come up with a good plan, which we can't make a good plan sitting here in 5 minutes. So we need to hear from the audience or from the community, and then we need to make a good decision based on inside the city, because fireworks is about as American as
Yeah.
anything there is in this country.
And
And I got that, but
I also want to say, before I recognize Commissioner Marden, the city of Newberry is not trying to compete with the city of Alachua. The city of
No.
Alachua
No.
kind of has, they've come up, they're the fireworks, 4th of July.
But we've always had people in the community have come
That
up
have
with
done
and
it.
spent a pile of money
Right,
on fireworks, and people flood the place to see them.
yeah.
So if there's a place we can negotiate this out and figure this out, like I said, internally to the city, make a good show, it brings in people for the community, but we just need to do our due diligence on how to do it smart.
Commissioner Marden.
Well, I mean, just thinking out loud, I think there's provision in my head for commercial versus private. I think there's provisions for established holidays that are more customary, which people kind of know are coming around and they're going to be happening. I think we get way down into the weeds if we try to zone out the city, in my mind. And the other thing that I'm thinking is there life with fireworks without having the booms? Can they, I mean, no.
There are
I'm just
fireworks that are just the lights, they don't have the
Kaboom.
boom. We looked at that for the
The big earth,
125.
the big
Yeah.
earth-shattering kaboom.
So that they just go up in the air and sprinkle down. Now, I think they're more expensive, which is why nobody wants to use them.
Right, and I'm not a fireworks expert when it comes to the types, but NFPA 1123, and I believe that was placed in your backup documentation, that NFPA 1123 is very comprehensive as to all the requirements that the professionals are held to in the standard. When they receive that state license, or even an ATF license, we have one resident that maintains a federal license for explosives, which is fireworks. But it spells out your fallout zone, which is how far people have to be away from the fireworks display in the buildings. And I mean, it's very comprehensive, and it's quite a few pages. I've become fairly familiar with that over the last 6 or 8 months because of all the questions that we've had. But I agree that there needs to be some thought process that goes into this. But we've allowed one 2 weeks ago. What happens 2 weeks from now when somebody picks the phone up and calls and says, hey, they got to do it, what can we do to do it too? That's a dilemma that we're put into as staff, because now what do we do? So it's getting some direction and getting some things clarified, I think, are key to moving forward.
I think immediately we can just tell people, this has triggered a conversation to clean up what ordinance we have, and they're just going to have to stand fast until we get through it. So if we can potentially have fireworks without the booms, I think that could be a consideration. But as long as we have good information, I have all the confidence that we can figure out a workable solution that should satisfy everybody. I don't have any problem. I have all the confidence in the world we can do that.
I agree. The mayor mentioned the city of Alachua. Just a quick look at Municode with municipalities directly around us, and we all know how Municode is. Sometimes it's there, but you just can't see it, I guess. But you use the search engine in Municode in the city of Alachua, there's no mention of fireworks. Same thing for the city of High Springs, no mention of fireworks. But High Springs does mention that they've adopted Florida Administrative Code 69A, which references NFPA 1123. Alachua, they contract with Alachua County Fire Rescue, so my guess is, it's just a guess, that's probably why it's not in their ordinances, because it's enforced by a county agency. Sir?
He coughed.
Still coughing again? Yeah.
And we're going to open up to the public, because I know we have people on both sides who'd like to speak to this tonight. But I guess my question to the commission is, what is the information you're looking for our staff to go out and generate? Because we've got in the backup material 2 or 3 other cities and their ordinance and how they handle it. I think that the issue is pretty straightforward. Do you want to have it in an urban environment? Do you want to have it in rural? Do you want to say you can only have it out at the mines? Because on paper, I think Post Farms looks ideal. Impacts the fewest number of people. You can park 10,000 cars. You can get in and out. You just disturb the cows, right? And the farmers who live out there specifically not to have a whole lot of noise. Commissioner Coleman, what are we looking for here from staff to help us?
This is my idea. I wish there was a way we could approach, go back to this. I thought there was 2 readings on this. So, and another thing is that, it's probably affects maybe 3 to 4 different cattlemen out there. It's just no different than, and the Davises have cows too. Nothing against what, I don't know if they're the ones that put it on, but it is a problem. They shoot those fireworks across over there at Half Moon Station. I got a dog that goes absolutely nuts because of it. I'm not a big fan of it anyway, but to each his own. But it's gonna be a tough night that night. They're shooting off that big of fireworks, I can tell you.
Are we looking for more sample ordinances? Are we looking for population points? What is the information that we need that we don't already have to make this decision? Because I'm with you. We should make this decision lightly, but I'm not sure what else.
I'd like to have a little more time to study this
Ponder on it.
based on what Scott read tonight,
Okay.
and a little bit of education maybe from Scott on some of that wording, so we can put this down. And then, there again, are we talking pros, or are we talking people in the backyard?
Right.
There's a total big difference.
Well, and when you get into people in the backyard, then I think you're also talking about how do you even regulate that, Because the 4th of July is already exempt anyway.
What I mean is, when you go down here and buy these little shows.
Some of them are pretty good.
Oh, I know. Real good.
Yeah.
It's
You
still-
can put on a pretty good show, but it's not, I get what you're saying.
The mortars are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
The mortars are pretty heavy, even the ones you buy in they bring them in Alabama, bring them right down here.
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
Are we ready to go to the
Wait,
public?
wait a
We
minute.
shot 'em in. We shot 'em
Yeah,
in
I used to
Alabama.
go to Monty's house and get those M80s under the table.
But I think we need some time
That'd blow
to
your
study
fingers
this
off.
and be able to make a good decision. I'd like to hear some more stuff.
Well, are we ready to open to the public, or we got any other comments? Let's open it to the public, and then I always think it's a good idea for us to sleep on it. But I also think it's hard when you go to the public, because the people who are against this, sometimes they're more vocal. The people who are for it, sometimes they're more vocal. So it's hard to get a good read. And clearly people want fireworks shows. We have lots of requests for fireworks. So with that, let's open it up for public comment. We'll make a queue up here. Anybody from the public would like to speak to this tonight? Don't be shy. You waited here.
I know you all are on the against side.
Have we managed to make this side the for and this side the against?
Okay. How, is this on? Do I, okay.
It's on. Just go ahead
I'm
and
definitely
introduce yourself.
anti-fireworks. Have been for
Will
many,
you
many
introduce
years.
yourself for the record, ma'am?
My name is Cheryl Coleman. I am one of the landowners who borders Post Farms on two sides. We have numerous cattle and horses out there. Just this 4th of July alone was enough to send my horses into a tizzy running. I have one horse who nothing bothers, but this does bother her, and she ran pretty much until she was exhausted, simply from your backyard fireworks. I cannot imagine what I'm going to be dealing with when Post Farm sends off these professional fireworks in the next month. I would have been here that night that it was discussed, but I received the notification in the mail the next day. So that didn't help me a whole lot. We have cattle out there on two sides of Post Farms. My uncle has cattle there. The Colemans have cattle on the west. There are numerous people with horses on the east side of that piece of property who are not here tonight, I assume. I like fireworks as much as anybody else, but I think there's a better place for them than in the agricultural rural community. I like the idea of the no boom fireworks. I suggest perhaps there is, I understand, a 10-minute limitation for this one coming up. That's what was in the notice that came out.
It's not a limitation, it's what the applicant said that the show would last, but the commission didn't set a parameter unless staff set a parameter after the fact. Just want to clarify, it's a small point, just want to clarify.
Yeah, well, it needs to be limited if it's not, because that's what the people who did not come speak to it are assuming, that it will be 10 minutes. I don't believe that there is a reason that I should have to have additional insurance liability for that to be going off in my neighborhood. If my cattle get out on the highway, someone gets killed, I'm liable because they were shooting off fireworks and making multi-millions of dollars because they wanted 10,000 cars out
I
there.
have to ask you to wrap up and finish that comment there.
And anyway, I'm very anti. I would love to be involved in any other communication or conversations about this. And I do have one question for the attorney.
Hang on one second, man. We have to end because we have 2-minute time limit on public comment, but we'll come back to that question.
All right?
All right. Any other folks from the public who'd like to comment tonight? Come on down, sir. State your name for the record for us.
Okay, my name is Robert Miles, M-I-L-E-S. I own a company called Ram Pyrotechnics, LLC. Sorry. I have a niche business. I specialize in private, small venue fireworks shows. Okay? There's a lot of misunderstandings about fireworks, and I've heard some tonight. Fireworks are classified 1.4, 1.3, 1.2, 1.1. 1.4, there's 1.4G, anybody can buy. Some of that stuff's pretty heavy. There's 1.4S. You can buy it without an ATF license, but you have to be trained. That's what I deal with is 1.4G, 1.4S. Okay? I put on shows. As some of you know, I shot the show at Granville Plantation at my daughter's wedding in February. I had reached out to Chief Buckner. I knew that there was kind of a gap in the law or whatever. I don't do the kind of show like they're gonna do at this carnival, okay? I guarantee they're gonna be using 1.3 product. To buy 1.3, you need an ATF license, a BATF 54. You don't need it to shoot them. And if they had space on the crew, I could work that show. I'm experienced enough. An ATF license is to buy. If you go above a 1.3 firework into really big, like huge mortars, talking like 8-inch, I think those are 1.2, and then 1.1 are gigantic. You need a federal explosives license, and there's all kind of requirements ATF has for storage lockers that don't apply for 1.4 GNS. Okay.
Keep your comments to me, sir.
Oh, I was going to say, I live in horse country in Marion County. I live right next to the World Equestrian Center, okay? Every year I shoot a huge show on my property. All my neighbors have horses, but they know that I'm going to shoot.
I'm going to give you 20 seconds.
So they know
over as
ahead of
well.
time. So I would like to see a permit process here. Probably judge these things on a case-by-case basis. I don't know that I would have necessarily, shot a show in the middle of a bunch of farms, but someone they have property they want to show and it doesn't affect people, or they have a venue, and I know that probably wouldn't work for your venue per se. But
Thank you, sir.
If they have some kind of venue, why not?
I appreciate it.
Why not have a permit process?
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Anybody else from the public would like to speak to this item? You got 4 more folks over here on this side, another one over here. Yeah, we all thought Alvin was going to talk, but. Okay, anybody else from the public? Well, if Alvin wants to yield 30 seconds of his time, we'll let you ask your question to the attorney. We're not going to guarantee, come on back down to the podium so we can read it. We're not going to guarantee an answer tonight because some of those kind of questions need some research, but we'll get it on the record so we can.
He may already know the answer to this. In reading the agenda, it says that the Alachua County is required to have $100 million in damage insurance. Does that cover us?
That's unincorporated Alachua.
That's unincorporated.
Well, I'm just saying, if we end up with a requirement that they meet these same requirements, if your program does that, is that $100 million going to cover us, livestock producers in the area, if their fireworks are the incentive for our animals getting out and getting injured?
As to this specific event that's going on at the mines, the answer is yes. If there's something that happens as a result of their firework display, then they have public liability insurance, which would stand in for some damage that happened as a result of their actions. So the answer is yes, that would stand in place. Now, the county ordinance, to delineate your question a little bit further, the county ordinance governs the county only, does not govern the city. So one of the things that we would be looking at is what regulations should we have so that we can be consistent in the application of the rules for anybody that comes before the city, and what are the parameters for those regulations? Do we want something like the county has that has policy limits for the public liability insurance of $5 million and $100,000, not less than $100,000 worth of property damage coverage? Do we want to increase that? Do we want to have a cash bond of at least $5,000? Can be more, might be, it can't be less than that.
So if the city chooses to adopt
Hang on 1 second, man, because we're not in it. This isn't you had one question. So we don't want to open it. This isn't a dialogue. We'll have a workshop, it sounding like to me, where we will have the opportunity to go into deeper about that, but we don't allow grilling in this kind of a format here. But we will, it sounds to me like that's what we're going to do, is have a workshop. So write any other questions you have down, and we'll make sure that you can text them to me, and I'll send them to Scott, and we'll figure out, they'll become part of that conversation, okay? But I want to make sure I'm being fair to everybody here and not giving too much to one side or the other. Okay, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak tonight?
While the gentleman's coming up, what we do want is your input from
Absolutely.
both sides of the coin. We want as much input as we can get so that we know whatever we do as far as regulations are concerned, that we've got the most informed position on what it is that we're doing.
Welcome, sir. To introduce yourself for the
My
record.
name is Preston Ponce. I live on the other side of the road, on 90th Avenue. But I've had up to 18 horses. I've boarded horses, trained, taught lessons, trying to get people in horsemanship, understanding the unique character of a horse and working with it, not against it. And I'm now retired, can't move as much, can't move as fast, can't get out of the way. I have 2 horses left and on a much smaller piece of property, but still, I think the fireworks are a dangerous thing for horses, and horses are hard to replace. They're not just it's not just it is a pet, but not a pet. I know they're more than pets, but they become something very personal, which you put your life into them and gain back and forth. So to lose one because of fireworks, and out in that area, there are all kind of horses. There's people like me who have 2 and 3. There's others who have much more. So I would love to not see any kind of fireworks anywhere out there. Even when I do have neighbors, and they've told me they're going to go off, and I know they are. There's not much I can do about it, but just kind of try to get the horses in an area where they can move and run and not be in a small place that really they have a problem going through a door or a stall. So I hope you'll think of those things. I think I've heard that tonight from all of you, and I appreciate that. And I know it's not an easy decision to make, but I hope you'll take real hard thought about the people whose livelihood and is cows, horses, and other livestock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, do we have other members of, I'm sorry, so you only get one opportunity for public comment, so.
I just want to ask.
I'm sorry, you only get one opportunity for public comment. Anybody, well, would you like to yield 30 seconds of your time, man, to him to ask the?
Oh, God, no. I just think
Okay. Right.
Oh, yeah, so give him my
Okay.
time.
Okay, again, we just have to stay consistent so that everybody's being treated fairly. So ask one question. We're not going to give any guarantee that we're going to answer the question because we may have to do some research. And this is not a conversation, it's public comment. So we're here to hear your feedback. Go ahead, sir.
As far as a workshop, who would I email, like, things would that be you, Mr. Mayor?
You can email me if you leave your email address with the woman in the back right there, Miss Amy. She'll make sure that you get any notifications about when those are set up. And whatever you email to me, I'm going to forward to the manager, the attorney, and to Amy at the same time. So, but you can certainly use me as a point of contact.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, anybody else from the public who'd like to speak to this? Hang on one second. I'm trying to keep order. So, all right, no other public comments. Okay, so we've all heard, I think, some interesting parameters. Commission conversation. Commissioner Marden.
I actually was hoping to ask Bob a question about the whole fireworks that don't go boom. Can you come up?
Come on. The commission has free reign to ask as many questions of you. Do you have any knowledge on fireworks that don't have noise?
I do.
component?
Right now it's very limited. It's mainly in the 1-4 class. It's not in the 1-3. But
and for those of us who don't speak this jargon, the 1-4 are bigger fireworks?
Or smaller.
Smaller fireworks. So the lower the number, the bigger the...
Yeah, anything that's 1-4G, you don't need an ATF license. 1-4S, you have to be competent. You have to prove competency. They're all electrically fired. I fire everything electric anyway.
Okay.
Or I use a method that starts electrically. But yes, comets, they've been around forever. I love comets. They're quiet. And then they have a new range of effects where they barely make any noise, but it's not very many products. When they have like, actually they have one that's a newer one that goes up, and when they fire, it actually comes down like a waterfall. Especially when they're timed, and usually the timing is really good. Okay. It's actually like a gold waterfall coming down. Makes very minimal noise.
Do you have any other questions, Commissioner?
Are you running into the same or similar dynamics in other communities?
No. No.
We're just the only one.
No, it's and just not to compare. I really don't really deal with Alachua County so much, mainly the city, but in Volusia County, I love their whole setup. It's It's a permit process. Their permit's a little more expensive, but they also require standby time of the fire department. So that has to be factored into the show cost. But they actually have a crew. They come out, they inspect your setup, okay the setup, then they stay for the whole show, and then they stay for, a prescribed time after the show to make sure that nothing's on fire, and then they leave.
So we could have a crew of cowboys factored into ours. You gotta stay out there with a trailer full of horses to go out there and round them up. Is that your last question?
Yeah.
Commission deliberations, Commissioner
I mean,
Marden.
just from my thinking, if there is a way that we can split off the personal and the commercial, I don't have a problem with a checkoff. I get less and less interested about permit processes sometimes. But I mean, I think the commercial probably needs to go through the chief, just from a standpoint of maintaining public interest. Again, I think the designated customary holidays are probably fine and probably not going to require a whole lot more, but I think where we're going to get probably down is when we're trying to customize as much as we want to. I don't think we'll be able to get to that level of customization. And I don't know, maybe the industry goes more towards the quiet ones in the future or something. I'm not really sure. I don't necessarily need a whole full-blown workshop about it, though. I think we probably have quite a bit of information already, and get I mean, I'm in favor of fireworks, but I'd like to try to make both sides happy, and the pros are going to be ticked in some sort of, everybody's going to have a beef, but that's just the way kind of life is. I don't think we can customize everybody's life.
I think there's one element here that we haven't mentioned, but we should be thinking about this, because when we get to this, if it's staff go adopt the county's ordinance, there's not a cost associated with that, right? It's already made, we bring it, we may tweak it here or there, but it's already done. But if what I'm hearing from you guys is, staff, we want Scott to open up a special project, and we want Scott to do some research on different ordinances, and we want staff to go spend, 10 hours of researching this, put together a presentation. I'm always reminiscent of my first year as a commissioner, bringing light to the noise ordinance and the problems we had in our noise ordinance. And, we got to the end of the year and we'd spent $20,000 in legal fees researching noise ordinances and trying to figure out exactly how to address noise ordinances. So it's one thing for us to say up here, yeah, we need to spend more time, we got to do some research and think about this. But I would go back to the very first question I began with, was if we just want to say no, then this issue gets a whole lot simpler. I kind of with Commissioner Marden that I hate to just say no on things, because I think people kind of figure out ways around it. But I think it bears, I think we should at least ask Scott and Mike, what are potential cost estimates here? If we want to do a deep dive into fireworks ordinances and craft our own, that's in your wheelhouse, Scott. That's a whole separate, and he's probably pretty close to 10 hours just on getting ready for tonight. So that's just one more element. Again, if you like the counties, go with the county. We'll mirror them, $100 million, and we're done. Commissioner Coleman, you had a hand up. Commissioner Clark.
Mayor, what I'm saying is, I would like for each individual, if we can't talk about this stuff for the sunshine, I can talk to you, I can talk to Scott, and I can talk to Mike. And I'd like to have the opportunity to individually do our own homework to come back here to make a decision whether we agree or not. Okay. That's what I'm saying. I'm not asking for Scott to spend no more time on it. I'm not asking nobody. I'm asking for me to have the opportunity to come to y'all, and then I can make a decision based on what I think.
Is there any commissioner here who wants to advocate to just say no? Or does everyone want to find a solution here to fireworks? You want to find a solution? Okay. Okay, so then, at that point, it's worth continuing on. If we all want to find a solution.
We spent $10,000, Mr. Mayor, in this town.
Right.
And they're here.
Right.
It's $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, and they shoot
Right. Okay, back to Commissioner Coleman.
So out there, it's pretty much, it's a go, right? Ain't much we can do about that now. But we do need to find let's just, we need to notify them.
I'm pretty sure they all know now. They just didn't know in time to come up here and voice it before we voted.
So, because you're probably taking about, if you go out there with your cows and your horses, you know, which probably I know they will. I mean, you got I think everybody here on the dais understands what it does towards livestock. And not only that, dogs. Freaks them out. So. Benadryl, yeah.
All right.
So, I don't think we should, completely, we just say, no, you don't do that. I mean, that's American, fireworks. I don't think any of them are against fireworks.
We just need to be a smart balance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Mazon in a moment, but my final question is going to be, is everywhere where Commissioner Clark is? Because if we all just need time to sleep on it, that's a different thing than Chief and Scott go do some research, bring us back a whole lot more information, a bigger presentation. If it's just, we need time to sleep on it, we need time to have some conversations in the community, I think that's always a good course of action. I just want to make sure we're being clear on what we're asking from staff. So, Commissioner Mazon, did you have I thought you might have been reaching.
I love fireworks. So I'm gonna take on this challenge. I'm the type that I like to go straight to the person that seems, we can ask questions, right? That seems the worst. What would you recommend? The gentleman with the hat. Yes.
But you have to be willing to come down here, sir, to the podium to answer the question. That's the only caveat. You can answer, and you got to introduce yourself to the end of the mic.
I'm Alvin Langford. Green light on there, right facing that. I don't know. There's no light on.
Okay, you're good.
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Alvin Langford, I would recommend not having fireworks in the agricultural areas.
At all.
At all.
So, out of curiosity, just for my knowledge, have you ever liked fireworks?
Yeah, I've went to Alachua and watched fireworks. I went out here when Holt had fireworks. We went to St. Augustine and watched fireworks. I like them still, but I just know they got a place. I know if our cows get out, I'm going to be the one, my family's going to be the ones, out there rounding them up in the middle of the night, trying to keep them from getting run over, trying to keep them from getting killed or killing somebody. Ain't nobody here going to be there. Pat Post ain't going to be there. And Pat Post's money man ain't going to be there. So who's going to help? Who's going to pay for the extra expense? I'm going to recommend she puts her horses in her horse trailer and takes a trip to Williston or somewhere. But we can't haul 40 head of cows around.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with horses than I am with cattle.
So what we going to do with the cows? Put them in our cow pens? So now we've got to pen them. We're going to have to spend money and time adjusting our life around this man's project so he can make bunches of money.
Do you have any other questions, sir?
No, but I would like to go back
Thank
to
you, Mr.
where
Langford.
Coleman.
We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. To where Coleman said that he thought that it would be too late to go back to Pat Postbill and say, "Hey, look, we changed our mind."
I think that's a question for the attorney and the manager. We've never gave approval and then yanked the approval before, but so I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
But just maybe go to an alternative.
Mr. Attorney, Mr. Manager, you want to? We've never approached that.
I think you've permitted it, so you always want to, because the permittee has probably spent money at this point in doing what they need to do and planning and purchasing. I'm sure they've already engaged in a purchase order, so we don't want to cause them damages and then back up, potentially cause the city damages. Now, I think we can certainly ask, can we look at these limited noise fireworks, if you already put your order in, but if you have not, and you can look at these 4G types or style of fireworks that are limited noise. Is that something that's doable here? And to the extent, is that possible, then I think we can certainly have that conversation and have that request of them. And then also, I think the discussion's been very helpful to me at least. I want to look at the Volusia County ordinance and see what the provisions are in that ordinance and what do they have. Maybe there's some areas that we might want to implement. So we'll do some of that and reach out to the folks that have been here this evening and talked about it and try to bring you back something that is hopefully thought out and has some provisions, some innovative provisions that some of the other governments are doing. So that's what our game plan is.
And I would say at this point that the applicant wasn't noticed that that was on the table tonight. So it wouldn't be fair for us to take that action without giving them the chance to come and, but I think we can absolutely direct Mike and Ben to just find out, have you already ordered them yet? If you haven't, would you consider ordering them? But it would, at this point, it would have to be a question, not a mandate. You got anything to add, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, when before the applicant appeared before the City Commission, I anticipated that the answer was going to be a no. And I had already asked, would you consider a light show? I knew that, at least from the Commission's perspective, there was a level of comfort with light shows because the Commission had asked us to schedule a light show for Aquaski Centennial because of their concern about booms in ag areas. And his response was, it's not a deal killer for them, but it was important that he didn't see any value in the light show. And if the Commission said no to his request for fireworks, he just wouldn't do anything. He's a vendor that we have a relationship with. He wants to do lots of events in Newberry. I'm happy to have the conversation with him again. I know that his advertising indicates that there's going to be fireworks, but he thinks that the country music billing that he's bringing in is what's bringing the crowds, and that the fireworks is a nicety. He may yield that without any concerns because he's interested in a long-term relationship. It's a conversation we're willing to have.
Chief, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just to go back to your question, Mr. Mayor, we received staff received an email on July 22nd, which was last Thursday, from the vendor at the proposed event. To answer some of the questions, it appears they've already at least began to accumulate their fireworks. The mortars will be 1 3/4 maximum size and 1.4 G, which are the smaller ones compared to the larger ones, the 8-inch mortars, 6 and 8-inch mortars. They will have some 3-inch shells that they're calling repeater cakes. But it appears that they've already began to gather their product based on this email from last Thursday.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So I think where we're at is the commission would like to consider all of these points of view. Is there any inclination to attempt to revoke the permit, or is that was just a question? Okay.
I didn't know if it was even possible, but that's why I suggested it.
Okay. So what we're talking about right now is Scott's going to do a little bit of research on Volusia. We'll get with him one-on-one. We'll talk to Mike and Ben about it. We'll all sleep on it, talk to our respective constituents. And then is there any inclination to have a workshop on this to invite the public, or do we think we'll just have another agenda item? We could always have another agenda item and increase our public comment to 5 minutes. Although what I generally find is that people are kind of saying the same thing for 5 minutes. But, the summary is, I've got livestock, it's going to irritate them, they're going to get out, they're going to die, someone's going to die. That takes about 10 seconds to say. And, I want fireworks, they're American. I want to have something to show my kids. That takes about 7 seconds to say. You've got kind of both sides of the issue. I think, our problem here Remember, we've had them out at Easton before, which is Parkland, Parks and Rec, but now there's 3 neighborhoods around Easton. I don't know that you can go a half a mile anywhere in Newberry and not be affecting some farmer, some rancher. So it's just an issue of moving it from one person's problem to another person's problem, you know. Maybe out there around the mine somewhere, but I don't know where the people are going to park to watch it. So, you know, I mean, those are the kinds of things I'd like us to all think about. So right now, there is no recommended action. We're going to table this item. We're all going to think about it. Scott, you'll do a little research on Volusia, and then we'll do a real good job of announcing when we are going to make this decision so that everybody can come, and we'll increase public comment time. You know, we'll talk about that a little bit later on and see if we want to give another minute or so just to make sure everybody feels like they've got plenty of time.
Sounds great.
Okay? I have head nods down the board. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Chief. That takes us to item 7, which is law enforcement funds, which I believe is Dallas.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. As you'll remember, a few months ago, you guys entered into a new contract with the Sheriff's Office. That contract provided a savings in this year's budget of approximately $136,000. Those funds are available to appropriate towards a project. Staff isn't necessarily asking for a hard decision tonight unless the commission has one. If you'd like to give us the top 3, we can come back with more information, or we can always discuss this at another point. We do have a list of potential projects. I'll just go through them very quickly. The first one is to repair the roof at the historic power plant down at the yard. The second one is to continue those repairs, mainly with tuck pointing of the power plant, but also some structural repairs of the power plant. We have installation of handicap accessible playground equipment at various parks.
I'm sorry, now it's for the public. Did you say how much money there is to spend yet? Did I miss that?
$136,000.
$136,000, thank you.
Yes, sir. Replacing, upgrading the cemetery fencing and gates, building and storage building for the historic fire truck to be located at the fire station, replacing our city phone system, which is currently obsolete in the end of its life, replacing and upgrading some of our holiday decorations, installing automatic locks at our city parks. These would be timer locks for our bathrooms, so city staff doesn't have to lock the bathrooms every night. Resurfacing of Southwest 5th Avenue from Southwest 254th to the railroad, and survey design engineering of the unpaved downtown roads. Of course, the commission can also always put this into reserves. It could fund a larger project that's on the docket, such as your road project, your city hall project, or the Quint that the fire department's looking for. So just looking for conversation, direction from the city commission tonight.
Dallas, remind me, because the roof on the old power plant, I thought that was it already budgeted? I thought it was already budgeted. Or was just the...
It's in the CIP to be budgeted, but it has not been budgeted.
Has not been budgeted.
No,
Okay. Okay.
The things on this list, Mr. Mayor, are either moving items forward in our CIP that haven't currently been budgeted, or are items that haven't yet made it to our CIP but are on our list of projects that need to be accomplished.
But we've already bid that project out.
No, sir.
I thought we had bid the project out. No?
Mr. Mayor, at our last discussion, we indicated that we were soliciting cost proposals from qualified firms to perform the work. We now have that information in hand, and that's why we are able to budget at $50,000 to know that we can take care of that project.
Yes, sir. We had a quote, but we haven't formally bid the project out.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Marden, I think you were first to the mic.
Yeah, my level of thinking was to really just roll this into the general budget discussion that we have going on right now and just do it all together at once instead of trying to tackle this separately. I think we just put the money in the general fund for now, and we'll keep these on the list knowing there's another $136,000 there.
We have a budget workshop this Thursday.
That's what I was going for. I was the same way.
Okay. So,
Are there any items on the list that the commission would like us to bring back more information for your discussion on Thursday, or items that we can just take off the list?
I don't even want
Our workshop on Thursdays.
The workshop on
very
Thursday
hefty.
is very hefty. I mean, the only one that I see on this list that is pressing would be potentially the first two there, repairing the roof on the building. The rest of these great, are all worthy projects, but I think, yeah, the budget workshop we have on Thursday is not the last budget workshop. It's the broken budget workshop, right, where we broke it in two. So we're gonna be talking about the three big projects. I would say this, in my mind, this is a take this list home and sleep on it again and see, if any of these jump out at you. I will say that an issue came to my attention today that may require some funding. That it literally 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I have not had a chance to chat with you about it. But I will be calling you pretty soon, putting that on your radar as well. So I think for tonight, it should be roll it into the general fund, take this list, see if there's any. I really like the REO storage building at the fire station. I think that's a really cool project, but I don't know that we've chatted about that one yet. So, but it's definitely a want, not a need. So take this list home, fellas, sleep on it. Commissioner Marden.
As a general understanding, does anybody have any concept to edify me about the level of demand for handicap accessible playground equipment in our community?
I think, I brought that up at the last budget workshop. I can't remember now which meeting, but almost every community around us at this point offers handicap accessible. Probably 4 to 6 times a year, I'm contacted by a parent in town with a handicapped child who wants to know, where can I go to a playground in Newberry? Well, now that I think there's different categories of equipment. There are swings where you can take your whole wheelchair on and you can swing. There are certain types of games that are have different stimulations that address certain needs. And I think Archer, is Archer? I think Archer does actually. Archer, I know Alachua does. I know High Springs does. At some point, it just gets to be, where are we at on this? Why haven't we addressed this as well?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm asking the question about the level of demand for it. Maybe Vicki would know over it.
Yeah, she'd be a good resource.
Okay.
And Travis, of course, he's the one that put it on my radar that this was a thing.
Does he have a lot of people ask him about it? I've never had anybody ask me about it.
When he brought it to my attention, it had been something that came up in a conference that he attended, and it kind of characterized it as the mayor did. There's more and more interest, and more communities are doing this, and at some point, then the community's going to say, Newberry, the rest of the world are doing these things so that that folks that are handicapped do have access to recreational facilities. Where are you at? So he put it on my radar. One of the things he told me is that generally it's hard to retrofit our existing equipment or to kind of make it half of one and half the other. He said normally you have better success with just going ahead and committing to a piece of equipment that is fully 100% handicap accessible. So it's probably a year and a half that he brought that forward to us and said, hey, this is the new thing that's coming down the pipes in recreation. I don't know the level of interest he's getting from people that come out to Easton, but we could certainly check with him, and I can send you guys an email once I find out.
Commissioner Maison.
I did have a resident that asked about handicap accessories at the playgrounds. Also, autistic kids, things for them to play with as well. They have a tendency of playing by themselves, where normal kids would probably play with what we have at the playgrounds now, but you would see autistic kids playing off to themselves. So finding things for them to play with, to interact with other autistic kids as well.
Yeah, I was in the city of DeLand, and they have it's an equal size. So there's a whole playground, and then it doesn't look like it's two separate playgrounds. They look like they're connected, but there's an equal square footage given. And I mean, everything from sensory stimulation to actual rides that you could get on, you know, they had it covered. You know, and I was talking with their Parks and Rec director, you know, about how they accomplished that, and it was, you know, they got a grant and they were able to go do it. So, I mean, I think everything on that list is important, and I think we'll get to everything on that list eventually. It's just, do we want to try to do that tonight, or do we want to wait and have these conversations in the budget workshop and have some of these conversations like Commissioner Marden is asking? No one's ever asked me about that, you know. So, I mean, I can tell you right now that the automatic locks, city parks, would probably be a huge deal, you know. Open up an app, click, you're unlocked. You go in, or you're locked, right? That'd be pretty.
We'd save our money and our manpower.
Yeah, yeah. So these are some things I'd like y'all to look at them, talk to Mike, talk to me, and we'll bring them back up. I don't know that we'll bring this up Thursday, because I think Thursday's already full, but again, we got other budget workshops coming up. Any other comments on this? Hear none. Thank you, Dallas. We appreciate it. And that takes us to comments, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For any of our residents that wonder about whether our elected officials are putting in the time, I'll just review. In addition to our regular meeting schedule, we have workshops tomorrow night to discuss the general fund budget. We have tomorrow night is to discuss City Hall expansion. Then Thursday night, we're discussing the part 2 of the general fund budget, continuation of a workshop we had 3 weeks ago. Then next Tuesday, we're going to have another budget workshop to discuss enterprise funds. And then towards the end of the month, and I'm just sticking to August here, we're going to get together on a Saturday for a community visioning workshop. So lots of work in the next several months for the commission and for staff. Just want to keep that on everybody's radar. Mr. Mayor, as part of our AMI deployment, something that was a part of that project that was near and dear to the heart of the commission and the staff as well, is that we have some public meetings, town hall type meetings. We are titling them meter days. We don't have exact dates yet, but we are rolling that out in the fall. Make sure that our residents have plenty of opportunity to learn as much as they can about it. An AMI system, which may seem ominous, I think once we actually get on deployed and folks see what's there, it won't be nearly as ominous as it might if you're just hearing about it. Mr. Mayor, also staff is planning to do a town hall meeting in October, probably just a weeknight, to bring residents, community in to learn more specifically about FMPA and our electric utility. Just sometimes we don't have, we never have an hour to an hour and a half to get in depth with those types of programs and share it with the community and go into some Q&A. And so we think that a town hall meeting with FMPA might be just the ticket, so people can ask about wholesale power and about rate making and all some distribution reliability projects we have coming down the pipe. So we're looking towards October for something like that. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Farnsworth.
When is the state of the city going to, when are you going to do that?
It's usually end of January, beginning of February. Right as the new year dawns. Commissioner Marden? Commissioner Maison?
I would like to thank everybody for coming.
Absolutely. I want to just say thank you to our staff who work really diligently with FDOT. If you are coming out of 15th Avenue, leaving the elementary school now, you will see that our old crosswalk has been painted over. Crosswalk has been moved. We mentioned it before. It happened while I was out of town, but that turned into a good 8-month project of getting those lines. It was really the lights that are incredibly expensive to move, but it is a great example of the city, FDOT, the school board, ASO, all working together to create a safer environment for our kids to cross. I'm very hopeful that we can now work with the school board on the crossing guards at this point now, the crossing guard hopefully should be able to help stop some of the traffic and let some of the people out. So I think that will be great if we can negotiate that point. So I wanted to thank the staff because it really took a whole lot of reminder emails to FDOT that we really wanted this to happen. I've already announced the Welcome Home Vets Parade on September 25th. We all have our homecoming parade on October 1st, so we got a lot of parades in our future. And that concludes my comment. And ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to ask any more questions on the record, if you had any other comments, you have a longer period of time at the end of the night for public comments, 5 minutes each. Does anyone like to address the commission on anything they've heard tonight on fireworks, annexations, parades, any of those lists you want to advocate for? I tell you about my Rio project. It's that beautiful old fire truck. You put it in a glass case right in front of the fire department. It'd be fantastic, gorgeous. It'd be gorgeous. Such a naysayer.